Hey, this is Buke from the METALHEADS Podcast, and it is an honor for me to be joined by Dave of Revocation. For those of you who don't know, the lead singer, guitar virtuoso, the genius that he is. Dave, how's everything going today?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I made the drive up from D.C. area today. You guys do play in Baltimore on Monday. Unfortunately, I have to work on the holiday. So came up here to wonderful Lancaster, PA, to see you guys. Now, you guys are on tour right now with Black Fast, Archspire, Cannabis Corpse, and your guys' selves. What's the second, third day on the tour?
Yeah, it's it's the second with the whole package, and then the third show for us because we did like a warm-up show in Providence.
How was that?
It was fun. It was like a small little club called Dusk, like just kind of out this random kind of industrial strip. But it was fun time. Last night was insane. Played Manhattan got to see all the bands and meet everybody. So last night was really terrific.
Yeah, I saw you guys made a post on Twitter and Facebook that you said last night was one of the best shows you guys have had in a while.
Yeah, it was. It was probably 300 people there in a smaller place too, and just going absolutely apeshit. I mean, people were literally hanging from the rafters and stage diving, circle pitting for the entire duration of our set. So it got a little crazy up there. I mean, people knocking over the mic stand, and one dude went flying into the drum kit.
That's awesome.
So it was just it was a wild time.
And and you left there without being like Randy Bly, and you didn't unfortunately push somebody. And
I did push someone off, but no
he
one.
He isn't dead though.
Yeah,
right?
no, he's fine. Yeah. No one got fucked up, so it is always a concern. Obviously, when you're playing, you don't want to see anyone get hurt. But I find metal crowds it's weird. It's like this insane entropy happening where everyone's flailing around and flipping upside down. I mean, I saw dudes doing like backwards somersaults off the stage, and you're like, oh my god, is that dude like alive? And then they they pop up 5 seconds later in some other part of the crowd, and you're like, all right, well, it's like this weird undercurrent of hair and everything like that just soaks them up and spits them out somewhere else.
I don't know if you saw the clip on the internet. It was out maybe a month or two ago of some pit, and those kids who like to spin around and flail their arms like windmills and stuff. Somehow this kid brought a trash can in, like a WWF style. Like Undertaker coming out of the rope with a trash can and like was hitting people with a fucking trash can. So luckily you guys didn't have that at the show last night.
There was no, pallbearer wasn't there or anything like that. So,
Yeah. So the last year and a half for you guys has been a whirlwind year. You guys released Deathless last year. I have no problem saying it again. It was my number 3 album of the year last year. Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing work from you guys. You guys in that time switched record labels also, but a little bit before that, right? That was in the spring or summertime?
Yeah, we, basically our contract was up with Relapse, and we shopped around to a bunch of different labels, and a bunch of them made offers. Ultimately, we went with the best offer, and we were really excited to be working with Metal Blade. Now having been involved with them for about a year and seeing how they work the record and the whole cycle, we're very, very pleased with them, and we've definitely become friends with a lot of people there and stuff like that. So it's a great relationship, and we're looking forward to continuing that into the future. Have
you had a chance to? I'm sure you have interact and meet Brian, of course, and dealt with him.
Oh yeah. Brian's great. Yeah. He's we've gone to a couple dinners and had some meetings together, and he's just a really great, knowledgeable guy. I mean, he's been in the scene for such a long time, and he's super supportive of us, which is great. I mean, I think the biggest compliment you can receive is when someone just kind of lets you do your own thing, and isn't like wanting to hear demos at every stage of the way, or it like they just let us
That's kind of let you guys be, yeah.
Right, which is great because that's how we're able to create. I mean, we write music for ourselves first and foremost. So it's great when you have people that are backing you that have the confidence that this is the first time we're working with them, but we know they're going to deliver a good product.
We had Brian on the podcast, I think earlier this year or late last year, and the thing that stood out for me is how for a guy who's been in the industry, since first putting out that Metal Massacre demo back in the day, he still doesn't seem bored with it yet, if that kind of makes sense. Yeah. He's still flying the flag bigger than some bands are flying their own flags.
Right.
You always see him going to shows. You always see him supporting his bands. Mm-hmm. You always see him happy for the success his bands are seeing. He doesn't seem like he's, sitting on this pile of money locked away from everybody else. He seems so accessible to everybody. And again, just like you said, so supportive of you and the band.
Yeah, he's great, and he's definitely one of those people in the scene that are sort of, one of the pillars of the metal scene, right? In a lot of ways, kind of holding it up and keeping that ship, sailing.
Yeah. Now to get back to your guys' year again, you guys also, your friend and drummer left the group. Mm-hmm. With this internet age we live in, things can come out on both sides and things can really be said and it can start a big argument and stuff. But what we saw on the outside, at least from what I read, seems like it was you guys just kind of left on good terms, which in this day and age seems rare.
Right. Yeah, he's doing his own thing, and we're super supportive of him and all his future endeavors. And I know he's working on some different musical projects, which I'm stoked to hear. So yeah, it was just one of those things where we parted ways, and we wish him the best.
Yeah, and you brought in one of my favorite fucking bands, from Ash from 3 Inches of Blood. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah, he really is an incredible drummer and a bit of a secret weapon. I mean, 3 Inches of Blood certainly have a great caliber of musicianship and stuff like that, but it's Ash can do so many things behind the kit, and with 3 Inches we're going for a modern take on traditional heavy metal, but I mean Ash can play in odd time meters and flow with just so much grace. He can do blast beats. His feet are on fire with the double bass. I mean, he really we really lucked out getting Ash behind the kit, and it also worked out great because 3 Inches are sadly breaking up, but at the same time it wasn't like we had to sort of poach him away from something or anything like that. So there's no blood in terms of that at all. I mean,
Cam's not here fucking coming out through the shadows.
Right. I know. He's gonna strangle me. But it's that their band was coming to a close, and he was a free agent, and he filled in for us in Europe, and we just hit it off super, super well, and we saw his skills. I mean, from the first rehearsal that we did with him, it was like, holy shit, wow. This guy is on fire. So yeah, I mean, we're super lucky to have him in the band.
Now, he at the time was living in Canada, right?
Yeah. He still is. Yeah.
He still is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, actually, interestingly enough, we just got his work visa, so he actually missed the first 2 shows of this tour.
Really?
Yeah. We had Charn from John Rice from X Job for Cowboy. Fills in for 1349 now, plays in Scorpion Child, so he helped us out in a big way, because without him we would have had to cancel the first couple of shows. We went through all the proper channels with applying for the visa. We even paid for getting it expedited, but it's just one of those things where sometimes it just gets caught up in this web where you're expecting an answer back and it doesn't come, and then you're kind of like, well, you're supposed to hear back a week ago, and so
here in this area, we call that the Sodom effect.
Okay.
Because with Maryland Death Fest, Sodom always says they're going to be there.
Right.
And then they say, visa issues.
Yeah.
And then
I mean, everything was super legit, like I said, but it was one of those things where it just didn't come, it came a couple days late.
Shame that they missed him, too.
Yeah. So we just picked him at the airport today. But he's got his work visa for the next year, so
wow.
We're good to go. But it's definitely one of those nail biter things, because you're like, oh man,
this could really be. This could snowball quick into a big problem. Right. You guys, before you know it, could have been 10, 20 dates in.
Right.
Wow. So, with Deathless being released last year, I first found you guys around the Chaos era, and even before that, when I first saw you guys, blew me away with your playing, and we'll get to that in a moment, but. For lack of a better term, what stuck out to me about your latest release is you have a mature sound to the experience of doing this for a while is starting to show through. And, the hooks to that album were just hitting you in the face the whole fucking time.
Right.
What do you think about how that album turned out and the critical reception it was receiving? And obviously, you guys, seemed like it sold well. You guys, debuted them well on the Heat Seeker charts and everything like that. So,
yeah, it's every album it's sort of another evolution for us. I think we're further honing our sound, and we listen to so many different styles of music, different types of metal, just different genres. So I think we're always kind of honing in on, what is Revocation, going to sound like in 2014 and 2015. And I think every year, we come closer and closer to kind of getting to that, crafting that sound that we're striving for. And I think you can be in different, mental headspaces, right? So I mean, Revocation in 2009 is going to sound different than Revocation in 2015 because we don't want to be that band that's, just sort of resting on our laurels and just sort of staying, in the same place. We always want to, push it to a different direction, still have it fall under the umbrella of, Revocation, but just maybe we bring out more of this element or scale back more of this other element. But I'm incredibly pleased with how Deathless turned out, and I think it's really just like sort of a great. It's sort of, I think, the pinnacle of our sound. I stand by every record we do, but to me, Deathless is my favorite one that we've put out. I think it's definitely the most mature. I think it's the heaviest. It's got sort of a dark undertone to it, and it also, I think it's our best playing too. So.
Now, as somebody who, and this is probably the most interesting thing about you, college educated in jazz, correct?
Well, I went to Berkeley. They have different majors there, so I didn't major in performance, but I did take a lot of like performance classes like that. My major was like professional music, whatever the hell that means, but it's sort of like a choose your own adventure major. So I did like a lot of education courses. I did like a little bit of music business. I did a lot of performance stuff. But I did study primarily with jazz guitarists there, and I took primarily courses like involving performance in a sort of jazz or blues kind of element to them. Yeah.
Have you played? I'm sure you have. You've played in jazz bands and blues bands. How does that stack up to playing in a tech death band? Is that harder?
Yeah, I would. I mean, to do it well, I would say so. I mean, I'm just sort of in the past, I would say, couple of years diving more into trying to be a little bit more serious in terms of like jazz and stuff like that, because it really just requires so much dedication and time. When I was going to Berkeley, you're in college, so you have to like make the grades. You're taking a whole bunch of different classes, so one class could provide a year's worth of like intense sort of study and knowledge that you can get out of it, but you're only taking it for one semester. So, and then multiply that out by however many courses you take in a semester. So I feel like you kind of you can't fully dive into everything. So I feel like just now I'm sort of going back through a lot of my old books and some old transcriptions and stuff like that, and really digging into it. So yeah, I would definitely. I mean, I think jazz and like classical are definitely like the two hardest like genres and demanding. Yeah, well, I mean, jazz, it's all improvised. I mean, there's certainly like you have to memorize forms and different heads and stuff like that. But I mean, the majority of it is the solos and stuff like that. So it's insanely difficult to have that freedom on the instrument. So it's something I've been working on.
With metal only being around a couple of decades now, is it also kind of harder with jazz and blues having such a already storied history of famous groundbreaking musicians who have been setting the bar and raising the bar each time? It's kind of almost daunting too to try and stack up to that, and realize that you're trying to play something that a lot of fans, in their eyes, they already, I guess, to kind of put it in terms like looking like a Muddy Waters or something. People may hold him as like the metal version of like a Sabbath. I guess where I'm going with this, as I lost my train of thought, is that with it being around longer, within a roundabout question, do you find it hard to try and play something new when you are playing that type of music?
Well,
I know that this question is fucking loopy and wacky, and I've confused myself. I don't know, wow, but...
there's so many amazing jazz musicians out there that yes, I mean, it's very intimidating to play that style of music. I mean, just within, the guitar realm, you have, greats like, Wes Montgomery and Pat Martino and Pat Metheny and these modern dudes like Kurt Rosenwinkel and Gilad Hexelman and Lage Lund, who are just, phenomenal guitar players. So it's certainly very, very intimidating. And that's why, I don't call myself like a jazz guitar player and that. I mean, I think I'm a metal guitar player who's trying to, work on that and take a humble approach to that. Just because, even if I never become, a great jazz guitar player, I think there's so much that I can learn and apply to my own sort of style, right? Part of, for me, guitar, being a musician in general, is just trying to find your own voice. So I think the more you expose yourself to, the wider, your color palette is that you're going to be able to draw from when you're, painting or whatever, to use like a painting metaphor. So it's like, if you only listen to, one band, right, you're sort of, your influences are sort of limited. But if you listen to everything from Cannibal Corpse to Beethoven to John Coltrane, you're going to have all these different, amazing, brilliant musicians.
Thank you for justifying those Elton John vinyls that I own.
There you go, right? There's so that you just get more of an influence to draw from, to hopefully craft your own sound and craft your own voice. So that was one of the things that studying with all these different jazzers at Berkeley really kind of drilled into me, is find your own voice. Don't just be a carbon copy of someone else. Music is supposed to be an expression of your own personal emotions and feelings. So don't just try to emulate someone. I mean, you have to first learn by emulating, of course, but you want to try to move past just sounding like whoever, and to really try to find your own identity.
Now, you just mentioned the word you just used earlier, masters. You have, I'm not asking you to toot your own horn here, on the internet and in trades, you've been called the best guitarist in metal today. I've seen it multiple times, in print, on websites and stuff like that. If this is the first time hearing that, or if you've heard it before, does that get in your head at all? And do you take a step back and first say, whoa, of course, thanks, but damn, that's a big weight to put on your shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen different accolades like that, and it's always it makes you feel good. Obviously, it's like, and it's nice to feel that you're appreciated and people really like what you do, and it's very humbling. But at the same time, I try not to think about it too much, because there's as far as like technique, there's always going to be someone who spent those extra couple hours with the metronome working on that, or so it's for me it's more about just like the writing and stuff like that. And if people really enjoy my writing, that's amazing. But it's also a very subjective thing too, right? I mean, someone might think I'm great, but someone else might like this guy better, that guy better. So I try not to think about that too much, other than just to sort of have like a warm, fuzzy feeling, and then get back to practicing or writing. Because if you let that stuff get in your head too much, then it's like all of a sudden you start thinking you're
Dave Mustaine.
Well, you just start thinking you're
I know
the shit, what I mean?
And then you stop trying.
Right, then you start trying. Exactly. So if you always...
And then it doesn't sound like you care anymore. Your heart isn't in it.
Right, and that's just getting back to what I was talking about before with jazz, that's why I like pushing myself, to do something that's out of my comfort zone, because it's so humbling, and it's like, fuck, I suck. I have to go back and practice this more. so there's always just so much to learn. And I think, the second you sort of stop learning or stop caring about learning, you're dead in the water. Because I think there was a composer, I think it was Guido Santasola, if I'm pronouncing his name right. He's a classical composer. He said, music is soul searching. Nothing is ever finished. So it's like, there's always this sort of drive to, dig deeper into, your subconscious or wherever the music comes from, and try to just bring out that inner sort of beauty or struggle or whatever you're dealing with at the time. So it's hard to sort of quantify that with saying like, oh, he's the best or she's the best or this or that. To me, it's about sort of personal expression, and you can't really put a quantifier on that.
Are you hard on yourself?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you ever leave a show, or even when you're in the studio, are you like if you're a quarterback, let's put it in those terms, you missed that pass and you're like, shit, or you played that note, and to you, where everyone else it may have sounded fine, but to you, and as technical and as perfect as you are, you're just like, oh, something's bothering me with that.
It's funny, yeah. I mean, I remember being in the studio with Zeus, and I was like, that line doesn't sound right. And he's like, you're crazy, that sounds perfect. I'm like, that sounds a little out of time to me. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, zoom in. And he zoomed in, he's like, technically you're 3 milliseconds off or something. Like, do it. And I'm like, I knew it, I gotta do it again.
Gotta do it again.
Right. So,
see, to me, I'm like, that sounds fine.
Right. Now, I mean, of course, you don't want to be exactingly perfect all the time either, right? I mean, sometimes it's cool to play behind the beat. I mean, it was a specific part where I really wanted to have this certain sound or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I'm very critical of myself. I think that you also have to let stuff go and realize, if you're playing live and you mess up a note, there's some people that it ruined their whole night, whereas to me it's like, okay, let me try to be better, the next night, but or let me try and work on that. But I try not to obsess over it, I guess, because you can also drive yourself crazy too, and then your playing becomes sterile or this or that. So I wanted to have kind of an organic feel and come naturally. And listening back to some old records like that, old Van Halen records or this or that, I mean, or old Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, all these different bands, there was some grit to their playing. It wasn't this perfectly quantized thing. So it's hard in modern metal because I feel like in the modern production sometimes it's sort of stripping out that kind of organic quality for a more super pristine, precise thing. So
but as a guy though who plays that so technical and so perfect, I know you said you like it, but are there any of those things that at the 3-minute mark, there's going to be that one thing, and it's like that little nails on a chalkboard sound to you? It's like, oh, there it is again. Oh. You got to tell yourself, snap out of it.
In my own recordings, you mean?
Or music in general, any bands that you really like, but that there's something wrong with it, and
I've never I almost never nitpick other people's recordings, just because it's just part of the vibe, and keep in mind, I grew up also in the sort of punk rock scene in Boston, so playing basement shows, and the sort of fast and loose, sort of sloppy factor of those bands was what made it have that sort of boisterous teen angst, excitement, whatever you want to call it, that was sort of necessary for the music. If you're listening to a really dark, fucked up black metal record, you don't want it to sound perfect. You want it to be kind of messy and rough around the edge.
Evil.
Yeah, because it gives it that kind of that grit and that grime and that sound. Yeah. So it really depends, from band to band, from player to player. But to me, it's such a kind of nebulous and vague word. But vibe to me is what matters so much. Does this have a vibe? Yes. Okay. Cool. Whatever it is, perfect. A
couple more questions, and I'll let you go. Being in a tech death band, when so much death metal is loud, aggressive, brutal, with a lot of the early bands, and even some of the bands now, you look like early Exhumed and stuff like that. Have you ever caught in flack for being a tech band, for being almost a little too perfect in the eyes of the purists or the old school guys? Yeah,
I mean, with the internet, it just gives a mouthpiece to anyone and just
you're a meme somewhere on Reddit or something.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I mean, there's gonna be people that are like, oh, this is too pristine sounding, but sometimes you read these comments and like people just have no idea what they're talking about too. Like I read something that was like, oh yeah, there's songs don't flow like this. The riff in this song, then the chorus is in like a totally different tempo. It's not a different tempo. It's in the same. It's like it's halftime, but it's not like a different tempo. So there's like all these different, opinions out there, and I think you have to just kind of take it with a grain of salt. I mean, you're gonna have people for the same reason that when someone's like, oh, he's the the best guitarist or whatever. It's like, that's great, but you can't let that go to your head. And at the same time, the criticism, you just have to accept it and say like, okay, we're not for this person, and maybe we can win them over down the line, or maybe they'll never like the band. I mean, keep in mind, sometimes the most negative comments you see on like YouTube and stuff are from people that aren't even metal fans. It just popped up randomly in their feed and they clicked on it and they like country music, and they're like, this is all noise to me. Right. And you're like, yeah, obviously if you like Miley Cyrus, like you're not gonna.
That's what everybody says to me. It's just noise. What are they saying?
Right.
You don't get it.
Right. So it's not for everyone, but that was what drew me to it in the first place. Was that sort of, it's going against the status quo. It's not meant for everyone. So you're putting yourself in the public eye in the age of the internet. You're always opening yourself up to criticism, but I think you just you can't drive yourself crazy with it.
Now, one more thing, to somebody who doesn't know music and hasn't been educated and really trained in it, maybe that's without doing a class here for people. How do you suggest or recommend people really try to start to learn, rhythm and music theory and stuff like that, to where like music like yours and just music in general, they're really appreciating it more. They're just not putting on, let's say, Deathless and just letting it play, when they're really understanding, hey, just like, man, he did that time signature, then he went to that, and then switched to that, where it's really blowing your mind because it even on a deeper level.
Yeah, that's a hard question because I feel like...
because I'll be honest, I don't have a fucking clue.
Yeah.
To me, it just sounds badass.
Right.
I know you're doing something amazing, but since I don't play guitar, a lot of it goes over my head.
Right.
And I hate to say that because I'm not trying to make your work any, all the hours you put in any less.
I think that's sort of really the kind of way to do it. Like, I don't think you necessarily have to know music theory or anything like that to appreciate music. I mean, if anything, it's makes it that much more special because there's a certain mystique about it. So
you don't have to know it to like it.
Right. And even as a musician myself, like, I catch myself sometimes like overanalyzing things, but when I enjoy music the most is when I'm not thinking about that stuff and I'm just sort of getting back to that sort of childlike, wonder of listening to my favorite band or something that's like nostalgia. And I do think learning sort of the history of different things and stuff like that can lead to a different. All these different things are add-ons that can lead to a deeper appreciation of it. Like, okay, I understand what's happening here, so I like it more now. Or this was so cool because of the historical context. Like they were doing something really different, and that brings a deeper appreciation. But at the end of the day, I mean, you either like something or you don't, and I think no amount of like kind of schooled understanding of it, quote unquote, like is going to lead to you enjoying it more. So I think it's all about being exposed to things, being exposed to them with an open mind, and trying to put things into a little bit of a historical and even sort of philosophical context, right? And I think that can lead to a deeper appreciation. But I wouldn't say like the key to really appreciating music is understanding like what polyrhythm this drummer is playing, or what keep in mind good technique and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't make good music. You could be the best player in the world or the most learned theorists in the world. It doesn't mean you make good music.
It's you can apply that to everything. Just because you don't know how to drive a car at 100 miles per hour doesn't mean you can't appreciate NASCAR. Just because you can't throw a football doesn't mean you're not a football fan.
Right, or like let's say it's like some super fancy crazy chef that like makes some deconstructed whatever. Maybe like your grandma's pasta is the best thing ever still. You know what I mean? So it goes and you can apply it to literally everything, like you said. But I think ultimately, you know, music is an expression of the ineffable. It's an emotional and cathartic release, and it's meant to connect with people on a deeper sort of esoteric level. So sometimes, you know, you don't have to understand everything to really appreciate it and have it move you.
That's a great point. Last thing I have, I have to say this to you, because I told myself the first time I met you I had to mention this. On the deluxe edition of Chaos, you have a cover of Faith No More. Was that something you've been wanting to do for a while? That stuff, your cover of that is hilarious.
Thank you.
And it's I'm drawing a blank on the title right now. Surprise you're dead.
Yep. I've been a Faith No I've been a Faith No More fan for a long time. I've seen them live a few times. We actually just played Heavy MTL up in Canada, and I got to watch Faith No More side stage headline, so I was like just giddy with excitement. But that was a song that we were playing live, I remember all the way back to when we were doing basement shows. We'd bust that one out, and it was always just sort of a fan favorite, just a fun song. And you know, that was sort of my homage to Faith No More. And it's, you know, it's probably one of their most metal songs, so it just sort of all made sense.
What'd you think of their last album, the most recent?
I haven't spent a ton of time with it, but I really liked a few songs that I heard that were like the singles or whatever, and they played a few of the songs, more of the songs live when I saw them. So it's like with anything with Faith No More, you have to spend time with it. Like, I didn't get album of the year at first. I had to like really listen to it over and over again, and like now I love that record.
That's what my co-host says. Yeah.
So yeah, you got to spend the time, and I haven't, unfortunately, had the time to sit down with it.
It's okay. Dave, it's a true honor to speak to you. Before we get off air, what do you want to say in closing? What is on the future for you guys? What's out now? Of course, you're on tour. What do you want to? Where can people check you out?
Check us out at our website, revocationband.com. You can also just go to our Facebook page, search for that on the old interwebs.
Yeah.
And we're on tour right now. We're closing out the Deathless album cycle with a bang with our headline tour with 3 other kick-ass bands, Blackfast, Archspire, and Cannabis Corpse. So if you're listening to this and we're on tour, come out to a show and come say what's up.
I really appreciate it, David. It's an honor. Thanks.